No way Peterson's.
This scene actually replaced another scene we had in the script, which we really liked.
We loved.
And we couldn't do it because of our PG-13 rating. He was smoking dope during this scene, and that was like actually the kicker. And they tried to make the scene, like.
Well, we tried to come up with something after in the script. We cut it because we couldn't get our PG-13. We knew we wouldn't be able to. And we were so in love with that dope smoking scene because it really set the tone for this character who's not really interested in the competition. And we set up, ultimately that it's the girl that he's interested in. And this was the scene that we used to replace it, and it just never worked. And we never found it. And actually, we didn't need it. As it turns out, by introducing them on the plane, we were fine. But it just kind of
was.
We just didn't need it, and it slowed the beginning of the movie down too.
I think it also had too many ideas. There was the idea about the plans he doesn't take care of, and it's all like kind of a mess. And then on top of that, the TV. It's all too much, It was all too.
He's
forced.
eating again.
Yeah, and exactly. He's eating again, and my sister was like really upset about
this
that.
This scene I remember was like eating and talking, and there's nothing worse than people, talking with their mouth full of food. That bugs the hell out of me, and it certainly bugged Uta. There was a whole sort of subplot of the movie, which actually originally set up the Tokyo sequence, where there was this scumbag insider trader, Wall Street trader, who ultimately gets his comeuppance, which we see in the bus. We use that little piece of it, and the guy in Tokyo gets his comeuppance. And we struggled so hard to cast this role, found this wonderful actor, and he's so good in the movie, and yet we cut it all out, and here's the Tokyo sequence, and the part that's intercut with him that we used a little piece of. Actually, we used this piece in the film, but we cut out all the intercutting. We made it sound like it was his wife that he was having a conversation with.
Then not like Gary.
This guy Gary.
It's like we introduced Glenn Plummer character Luther.
That's right.
Actually, I had like in the other scene with the kids, coming to New York. Also, even it was not in the script, introduced Glenn too.
That's right.
So we actually could cut this out.
We used him sort of through the beginning in the first act.
Part where they talk on the phone. It was also maybe like one telephone call too much, right?
Yeah, it was like too much already.
Yeah.
Once we started this sequence, we either had to use the whole Gary story or not. And it was really, we loved this actor. It made us feel so bad having to cut this whole sequence out, but obviously, what could we do?
From here on, we pretty much used the scene later in the movie. Only cuts always him out.
Right.
It was actually a really kind of fun idea in a way. They're like doing this insider trading deal, and he kind of tells Tucker, you have to sell everything. And he's telling them there's this hailstorm and it will kill Tucker.
Well, and the fact is that the whole world is going to hell, and the only guy that's happy about it is him, because who cares about insider trading unless the stock goes up and the stock market crashes? It really started where the Gary story was much more complicated, where he was the real villain of the piece. Then we turned him into this character, and then we took him out completely. So it had a whole history of transformation.
That is in the movie, but it was like in a different set, and we had them looking out, and they see this.
We never finished this shot. This was a visual effects shot.
Is like this is how previous looks, and this was the other gimbal scene we had. Hurricane Hunter, they're flying into a hurricane, and we mainly did that to introduce how a hurricane looks. How a hurricane has like later we see
the eye that
later we see the helicopters in a way.
There's the green
flying
screen.
the same way, and then they come into the eye of the storm, and it's all calm. Her in that scene, she works for NASA.
Right, God, it's been like a year since I've looked at this. It's amazing.
Yeah,
haven't seen it in so long.
We like very early decided this was not
This was
necessary.
out really, really early.
Tell them to release the drop signs.
And then, remember?
Yeah, that was obviously because we never finished the sequence. We never finished the visual effects. So this guy who like is unflappable, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this guy's starting to freak out. The old pro.
And the
green screen.
It's like totally oblivious what's
He's
happening.
so focused on his work.
They all think will like kind of break up, and sequence is also a little bit too long, right?
Well, we never really focused
yeah,
on it.
when we would have left it in, it would
longer,
have been
longer
much
cut than it would have.
See, here it's not very much like a shot we later see with the helicopters, only it's over ocean. Way very much the shot we later do with the helicopters, where we pull up and we reveal, the
eye.
The eye.
Really funny.
Yeah.
And it really, God, we spent a week on a second unit with the exterior visual effects.
I spent
a couple of days.
I spent 2 days
inside and a day outside.
Yeah, a day inside and a day outside, and then Anna shot everything, which was
the stoned out surfers.
Yeah, everything we were still missing. So
and again, this would have been finished had we kept it in the movie. Was on a whole series of rockers.
It's a very, very expensive sequence, and there you see the set. I mean, that's not small. And
it was kind of blowing away, a la The Wizard of Oz. And some of the, I'm sure look, you could see some of the wires.
And these two guys.
There's the wires that we didn't, there we go. We didn't remove the.
Yeah.
That was a nice piece there. Yeah. Again, we did a first cut on this stuff, and we never touched it again, really. Because it was out so fast. Stuff after all this time. Funny too.
Yeah.
How much fun we had casting this part.
Yeah, we had so much fun with these guys. They really did a good job, and I'm always like very sad. I mean, they worked for more than a week on this, and we're really excited that we shot so much stuff, and then you cut it out. But it was really not necessary.
It flies away.
See, it's.
Dumpster tumbles towards car.
Okay, and that was a.
And now they think they've made it. They think they've gotten it.
And then
boom!
A whole yacht.
Continuation of the Gary story.
Your son would have really.
First time we saw him was probably Ferris Bueller, right? And then he.
Sorry, interrupting a jet noise.
He was in Speed.
Two actors in there from Speed.
It's
very kind of.
It's the Mark Gordon stock company.
No, I'm a big fan of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
He's a great.
We were like kind of talking about the part. We said like, what's about Alan Rook, and we got really excited, and he actually did it as a favor.
He was great. He was so great.
Shut up.
Really, to introduce Tommy Levinson as a weatherman, and he knows there's a big surf coming, and he wants to go on national TV, and he only knows when he's going out there, he will have a career.
This was actually where we shot the interiors in L.A. The hurricane stuff, the Twister stuff. It's a pretty shot with the skyline in the background.
Yeah, and we had like an inside joke.
That was the end.
He was like saying
Near Jack.
Actually, still in the movie in a way. Only it includes the Gary the stockbroker
we go
sequence.
Into that.
Hey, Victor's coming right to the train.
They were quite interesting because we exchanged all the news reports in a way to save the scene.
My little brother,
Felt it looked quite big. This set we had for the stockbrokers was like a bank in Montreal, and we had like this problem that all the monitors were like kind of
flickering.
Had flicker, and we had to actually exchange all these monitors. It was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a great set. The cost would have been prohibitive had we wanted to build it, but we found this great location,
which was
and now there's
a stock company in a bank.
I think we're gonna go outside.
The world is being turned upside down, and he's going, get funky, get funky. He was great. Coming up where they set up the fact that they're going to ask the Mexicans for help with the president, which we just felt that we didn't need. And also
I think it made Becker unredeemable in a way. It made them
the vice president was just too much. It was really over the top.
Open the border by force.
With the Mexican.
You're right. The Mexican ambassador was killed by a tree.
Hit his car or something
exactly.
like that. It's a little bit over the top.
Yes.
So I always liked the scene.
We really thought about this. Was in and out for a moment. We thought about this. It was also a nice moment for the president. You see him turn. The Secretary of State and the Vice President are kind of at odds through the whole movie, and this is the moment where the president goes with her.
It was what happens to the people from the library.
Two scenes that we cut. There was this one, and then
Yeah,
where they all die.
Yeah, where they all
They
die.
get frozen like
And
the guys in the helicopter.
This is the scene where they realized that after all this walking, they had only made it to Brooklyn. The visual effect shot, and that's when you start seeing, the super freeze,
the cloud formation that we set up earlier with the helicopters.
Where the wolf come, the
chasing
wolf
them
came after them.
down the halls of the.
It's pretty much everything is the same. We only cut out the wolves
because they broke through when they kind of locked them out. See, these wolves were never finished.
Yeah. Shot in there, which we kind of cut out, even though it was okay. Right?
Yeah, it was just we just didn't need it.
Yeah.
Same.
See, this was like a shot not finished, where we it's
interesting to see how the progression of the wolves in there.
This is all the same. This was a shot.
These are the only real wolves in the movie, right?
No, we replaced them with digital ones.
Those aren't real?
Yeah, they were like.
Oh, that's right, because they were too slow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And now comes a shot where you reveal that they're
right behind.
They're right behind them. Here they come.
Skidding. Finish that either. None of these were finished.
Yeah.
Once we made it much shorter. It was just not engaging.
I think it became too important. The wolves became too important. They became too much.
It's too much wolves.
Too much wolves.
The original scene in the fast food, restaurant, because it felt too casual. It's interesting looking at it now again.
Oh, yeah.
After having just seen, what we reshot.
It was very leisurely. The history was we had another McDonald's scene where they make hamburgers, but it was before actually the mall roof scene. So Frank was there, and it was a little. The scene went more like this. They're flipping burgers. Like Jason says, "Well, I cannot eat burger. I'm like a vegetarian." And everybody looks at him and says, "What are you talking about?
Who cares? It's over now."
When we reshifted the script, we put that idea, here in this version. There was actually one piece where he was saying how you like my cooking, and I says well, I'm like kind of vegetarian, and then we developed out of this, the scene after the super freeze, and in a way it was too leisurely. It had still the feeling of that other scene.
The kid is dying, or possibly dying. We don't know what's happening to him, and he's chatting about, they're talking about this and that and having hamburgers. And it just felt like it stopped the movie. There was, it took the urgency out of what was going on at that point.
What happened? Any comments about the kid, if they believe he's
that
still
he was
alive
still alive
or dead,
right.
or it only harked back to the story kind of Jake had earlier told about how he had this.
Well, that was a nice moment.
Yeah, and then we
even talked about keeping that, but it was
in
just
the tent.
Yeah, but it just was too long. It was just let's get to it. Sort of the end of that piece.
Mm.
Which now we use it after the tent scene, the second tent scene.
Roger, mission control.
But the waking up was in the McDonald's, which was also very. It didn't felt right. And so we kind of decided, to put that waking up, continue the storm also. So the storm is not so fast.
Well, then we also shot that other stuff in between the trekking, and then here they are, and they wake up. This, we kind of took this part and we put it into the tent.
Yeah.
New scene, we talked about Sam, is he going to make it, and we used the mankind piece. We sort of took these two scenes and chopped them into two different scenes and added some things.
Actually,
it's interesting.
It was interesting
looking at it again.
And then we have our shot. Also, that's
bad transition.
Bad transition.
Yeah.
So
the new waking up and seeing the behind them shot of the tanker up in the air is just amazing.